Hello everyone, wish you a very good morning. I am Kanika Kumar, the founder of MTMR. I am an educational psychologist and a special educator with 10 years experience. I started Minds That Matter to spread awareness about the field of special education. Every week, I host a person working in this field with special needs children to tell you more about the kind of work they do and how you can use the strategies they use to help these children. So, today I am in conversation. She is an expressive arts therapist, a practitioner in training, and she believes that less is more. When we make therapy fun and reflective, it leads to a wholesome progress. So today she would be talking about how expressive arts therapies can be used with special needs children to address emotional issues. So welcome Deepika. Thank you for joining us here today.
Hi, Kanika. Thank you so much for inviting me today. I really hope I can share my 2 cents today. And thank you so much for everyone, whoever is joining in right now.
Great. So okay, should I just start?
Yes.
Okay, Deepika, please tell me what is expressive arts therapy?
Okay, so jumping right into expressive arts therapy, it's a very wide field, which is, of course, like right now just emerging in India, wherein we use different and creative art forms like dance, movement, music, drama, visual art, storytelling, even play therapy. Although I am not trained particularly in play therapy, but all of these art forms are combined together and used in a therapeutic space. So
Okay.
basically, a therapy space wherein you can foster growth, human development, and however you can use as a therapeutic tool. So
Okay.
expressive arts therapy plays a very important role in that. And not to mention and not to forget that imagination, play, creativity, all of these are the basis of expressive arts. So in a therapy, we use all of these tools to foster therapeutic goals. So that is something what expressive arts therapy is.
I guess like when people say that you should not worry about your child getting bored because then they would use their creativity to find different ways for engaging themselves actually fits in with expressive arts therapy's goals.
Yes, definitely. And also understanding, for example, when we are as children exploring different art forms. Like children are usually very playful and they tend to, use those big crayons and scribble or do anything.
Right.
They do not care about the product. But as in when we grow, as we become adults, we tend to actually focus on the product. If the final product is looking good and if it's gonna like be liked by other people and if you're going to be
Right.
appreciated by other people on what we made. So this is where we are very different in terms of expressive arts therapy because we do not focus on the final product. So we do not
Okay.
see on what the product has been made because that completely takes one out of the process. So in
Uh-huh.
expressive arts therapy, we particularly just focus on the process and how are you engaging with these art forms, be it movement, be it visual arts, any of the art forms. While you are engaging in it, are there any sensations you're feeling in your body? What are the thoughts coming in? What are the feelings coming in? So this
Right.
is what makes it very special.
So how can it be beneficial for children with special needs?
Yes. So, in terms of expressive arts therapy, the target population is varied. Like, it can actually be accommodated to any of the target populations.
Okay.
And if you're talking about special needs, so particularly differently abled individuals can also benefit from it because it does not literally involve verbal talking. So, of course,
Okay.
you have to communicate. Even in our sessions, we do encourage clients to communicate because it helps in the thought process. But a lot of times, we cannot put our emotions and maybe our situations and circumstances into words. A lot of times, even neurotypical individuals do not have words on how to define what they're feeling. So in
Right.
that way, expressive arts plays a very important role, especially for children, be it atypical or typical children. But a lot of times for them to put words into emotions and what they're feeling and how to actually deal with
Right.
them is very tough because it's also tough for us. So in those senses,
Right.
understanding that how to process all of these feelings, emotions, especially if you're considering emotional challenges, how to process these things using art forms, using different of art like clay, paints,
Right.
sketch pens, markers, etc., using
Haha.
drama and role plays or masks, all of these things, or even for that matter, using movements. And movements does not, the dance therapy does not involve any form of particular dancing. You're not like literally dancing or looking for different dance forms. You're just
Right,
moving to
right,
whatever your body is asking you to do. So
right,
in
right.
that sense, it really helps a lot, especially with the atypical individuals, because we are not able to logically process what are we feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
just narrowing it down through the art forms and making it very experiential, it helps to
Okay.
process it.
Uh, I completely agree with you when you said that it's difficult for us to express our emotions. I feel another aspect of it is that we also find it difficult to label the emotion that we're actually undergoing. So
Yeah.
it makes the process of twofold. First, you need to identify what is the emotion that you're feeling, and then you need to actually be able to express it. So of course, it is a difficult process for neurotypical children as well as adults. So children with challenges are definitely going to have an even harder time. So
Yes.
since you brought
Uh,
up emotion,
yeah. I
sorry,
just
Kanika, go
actually
ahead.
wanted to address that very thing because I think it's very important to understand that identifying and labeling the emotion is one of the most toughest things. Like,
Right,
even
right,
for me right now, just identifying very quickly where the emotion is lying in my body or what am I exactly feeling is very tough. So when we
right, right,
consider atypical individuals as well, the social cues and understanding the emotional cues is in itself a very problematic for a lot of individuals.
right,
So
right.
then finding out different ways, like maybe using photographs or understanding different situations, that can help a lot. But yes, first identifying the emotion is, I think, one of the major factors before the emotional regulation and emotional
Right.
processing. Yeah.
So, what kind of emotional issues do these children with challenges face that the expressive arts therapies can address?
Yes, so of course, in my limited experience and the internships or the researchers that I've read, in terms of that, each individual, even if it's atypical, they have a range of different emotional issues, and we cannot generalize it in that manner because,
Okay,
I mean, every individual is, of course, unique and different. But in
right.
if we tend to see what are the most common emotional challenges, some of
Mm-hmm.
them are specifically loneliness and self-esteem issues, self-confidence issues, or
Mm-hmm.
fear, just insecurity or fear of not
Okay.
being able to do things.
Uh-huh.
And what happens with these feelings is the individual is not able to even identify the strengths because the society tends to shut them off so much. Like, even if you
Right.
see a lot of World Health reports, especially in 2011 that had come out, it specifically states that children who are differently abled, they are the most
Mm-hmm.
marginalized sections of the society because when we term
Right.
special needs, we actually see them as something very special, but we actually tend to indicate them as they are separate and they are not fit
Right.
in for the mainstream, which tends to just hinder their growth further. So it's very
I
important
just
to
want to add
understand.
something over here that what ends up happening is we tend to be very quick at labeling them. That, you know,
Yeah.
this child has this particular challenge, and then it, you know, as humans, it becomes really difficult for us to see beyond that label. And we have to really put in a lot of conscious effort to be able to develop this strength based perspective, you know, go beyond the disability, the challenge, the label, and see that okay, this child has these strengths. Like you mentioned that we need to focus on the strengths. We often, you know, unconsciously we end up looking at that, oh, this person has this problem, so we just shut down after that.
Yeah, very, very well said. Because the moment we label and the moment we just stick to that label for that
Right.
individual, it completely shuts off all the possibilities that the child could actually explore. Because
Mhm.
then we very indirectly, maybe through facial expressions or verbal talk, just ask the child not to do this because you might not be able to. Instead, the
Right,
child is
right.
just growing. The child has no idea what are the strengths and what are the strengths the child can develop. So it's
Right, right.
important to let them actually explore whatever they can. And I think in terms of that, a very important thing that the world has adopted and I think is in the process of adopting is the biopsychosocial model. So understanding what are your biological needs, and if it's
Right.
any different, then what are the strengths within that biological need. So, for
Hmm.
example, if you maybe need more auditory support, or maybe you need more visual support, whatever it is that you need, focusing on
Right.
that and then figuring out, okay, so how can we approach that at a society level, at a psychological level, but not hindering it because the person has some other concern. So, yes,
Right,
I mean,
right.
identifying strengths and focusing on them is very important.
Right, right. So, Deepika, given the current scenario where we're not able to provide a very structured environment, things are not very predictable because of COVID-19, the children as well as parents, they have to be able to adjust to the continually changing demands of the situation at present. So, what would you say, which kind of expressive arts therapy could be used effectively to address this part, adjusting to new situations?
Okay, so one thing I want to say to that is that the beauty of expressive arts therapy is that it's very adaptive. So, no
Okay.
matter, irrespective of the situation, the area of the space that you have, or the materials that you have, expressive arts
Mm-hmm.
therapy can definitely cater to all of that. Even for
Okay.
example, the internships and the clients that we are catering to right now, because it's the online medium, of course, that's a hindrance, but we tend to overcome that using different tools of expressive arts therapy, and because we can see face to face most of the time. So, what are the materials available at home? So, say for
Okay.
example, there are grains available at home. जो भी खाने
Mhm.
का सामान है, बनाने का सामान है, you can use all of
Right,
that
right.
to create maybe a 3D art, create maybe a mandala, things like this.
Mhm.
Or maybe there are different clothes at home. So there are dupattas, there are different types of clothes, there are cushions, all of these. So maybe a drama or some sort of play can be formed, especially if there's a family living together. They can maybe just as a fun activity try out different scenarios, different masks, and play out just a sort of a drama with the children, something like
Right.
that sort. Even for example, art, say for art, if you just have maybe coffee and water, that's all you have. If you
Mhm.
don't have paints, you can always use that coffee, tea, any of these grains, or haldi, you can just mix it with water and try to create a paint. Use your fingers to create paint, because especially with differently abled, they are very sensitive to different organs, right? And the sensory organs are very strong. So in that
Right.
sense, you can also try with just playing with water, mixing it with different maybe haldi, mirchi, all of these ingredients. And if you have henna plays
Huh.
a very important role in processing. Even like in expressive arts therapy, when we were taught, henna is one of the most important tools, and it's beautiful. Like it's such a personal experience. So maybe drawing on the hands, painting on the hands, all of these, like there's a wide range of options that people can do. And
Right. Right.
especially as parents, maybe we can also try out different things like playing with the child. If the child is running, then just running with the child across and letting that energy out. So, say for
Mhm.
example, if the child is very hyperactive, just a very random example, but if the child is hyperactive, a lot of times we tend to shun that out, like, don't do this, stay disciplined, this is
Right.
not
Right.
okay. And what happens is the more we ask them to shun this down, the more we are just building that frustration within them. We're not giving them
Right.
a source to let it out. So, in that sense, because we believe a lot in normal and abnormal, so in that sense, letting these emotions and letting the hyperactivity out in a very secured source through expressive arts can really help a lot. So it can
Okay.
be movement, it can be drama, music, creating rhythms. बर्तन तो पड़े होते हैं घर पे, बर्तन के साथ ही
Right.
rhythm बना लो. Yeah. So there are different things that we can do even as parents, as facilitators, as educators, teachers. There are wide variety of things.
Okay. Okay. So, how would you address, what kind of activities would you use to address anxiety in children? Like you mentioned, such wonderful and simple activities for parents to do to be able to address the adjustment part. So, what could we do to address anxiety in children?
Okay, so anxiety can have different layers, right? There are different symptoms that can arise as per anxiety. So, of course, it's very subjective on what the child would be able to adapt to and what the child likes doing. But in general, there are different things like, say, for example, scribbling. A lot of times when we are feeling anxious, we really tend to panic a lot, or there's heavy breath, or just feeling sweaty. So, just scribbling on paper, creating different circles can also help. Apart from
Okay.
that, maybe just drawing on boxes, all right? Just drawing out boxes and filling in colors within them. It also
Okay.
creates a way of containment, you can say. So drawing
Uh-huh.
different figures and just coloring within them, or you have if you have coloring books as children, all the time you can just like use different colors, sketch pens, color pencils, anything can be used, and it can be just filled in. So even if
Okay.
you consider art, there are different media involved. So there are sketch pens, there are natural elements, there is just paints, watercolors, acrylic colors, all of
Mhm.
these things.
Right,
Clay
right.
as well. So clay can also play a very important role in terms of anxiety because it involves your fingers. It gives you a sensory approach to it. So the moment
Mhm.
your body is involved and at the same time you can feel things and understand things, it can help a lot in curbing anxiety. So,
Okay.
just understanding, for example, if the child needs a little bit more of flexibility, in that sense, using media which involves a lot of water. So, say
Mhm.
watercolors, or maybe using just the marker, putting water in it, and then painting it out. So, all of these
Right.
things are possible. But if the child needs a little bit of more structure, then in that sense, things like markers, sketch pens, color pencils, all of these things can also help, like creating maybe a circle and asking the child to draw within that circle. So that kind of also creates a boundary and you're creating a mandala as well. So things
Right,
like
right.
this, yeah.
That's great.
Um,
I like how you can, simplify all of these things and explain it so well. Because, the activities that you're saying, we don't really need a lot of training to be able to carry out these activities. As teachers, as parents, as guardians, anyone can just pick up any of these activities, engage the child in them, and help the child feel so much settled. So
Yeah,
I think it's
definitely,
beautiful.
definitely. In terms of yes, so the only difference what happens is the expressive arts tools can definitely be used by educators and others to understand how can we facilitate different forms of growth. But the problem that arises if we do not supervise or do not like take the proper training in terms of in a therapeutic space, because it's very subjective, right? Because we are
Right,
not
right,
interpreting as facilitators. Even if you're creating an art form or you're doing a movement, we're just observing. We are not interpreting.
right.
So, in that sense, it's very important to know what are the various possibilities, what are the different things that can be incorporated, even jumping from one modality to another modality. So, that definitely requires training. But the tools of expressive arts can definitely be used once the child has explored, once the parents have explored that this is working for the child.
Right,
So
right.
post that, definitely it needs to be, and it can be incorporated within the child's daily lifestyle. So that is definitely beneficial. Yeah.
Okay. So, a little while back, Deepika, you had mentioned that it's very important for the child to be able to express how they are feeling. Given the current situation, what's happening is that children are used to going downstairs and playing, going to
Mhm.
the park, meeting their friends. But in an attempt to be safe from corona, that they are very restricted. They are more homebound, and because of that, there's a lot of frustration because as children, it's a little difficult compared to adults to understand that I have to stay inside and make use of any keep myself engaged using whatever is there available at home or via the uh, media. Through Facebook they might connect with their friends, through Zoom, WhatsApp, whatever, but it's still creating a lot of frustration. And because they might not be able to identify the emotion they are feeling, it might result in a behavior tantrum.
Hmm.
So what is it that a parent can do at that time?
Hmm. Okay. So in terms of going out, yes, of course, like the largest part of our population is facing that. And I think even apart from children, the adults are facing the same thing. So I would also
Right.
assume that the children's parents are also frustrated with the whole idea that they're not able to, handle the situation. At the same time, everyone's in the house and all of these situations. In my opinion, things like maybe asking the children to express these things in a safe environment, like again, like I said, maybe using drama, maybe if they're watching any TV show, say for example, I think Doraemon, Shinchan are one of the most common TV shows that I know. So maybe taking parts of those shows and just enacting them with the children and
Okay.
asking them to express how they're feeling, even if it's like, say for example, it's a lot of anger and frustration and they want to scream. So finding ways on how can they actually do this together within the
Right. Right.
family. Of course, it requires patience. It requires the family also to be okay with doing these things. But definitely, if the parents, if the caregivers can find a way to let the child express what they are feeling, even within the house, just running around and just running around with the child, or maybe using bricks or maybe using books to build a tower, or just
Mhm.
creating a scenario. For example, if the child wishes to go out, say, hoping after 6 months everything will be okay. So after 6 months, where would you like to go? Just create a scenario around it. And what other things you would
Right.
like to do? Because I think one of the most important things that we need right now is hope. And just like, what are the things we would like to do once we go out? So these are some of the
Right.
things which can also help in understanding, okay, once I go out, maybe these are the things I want to do, and these are the things which I miss going to. And if there is any possibility of bringing those feelings within the house. So just understanding and meeting the child where the child is at, not
Right. Right.
overpowering the child, not undermining the child, but just meeting and seeing the child where they are at and just being there with them. I think because one of the most important things, like I said initially as well, is just a feeling of belongingness, which is
Mhm.
really low. So, in that sense, just attuning with the child. If the child is moving, just like moving with the child, and just maybe if the child is sitting, maybe just having facial expressions and different facial expressions that they are using together and not talking. Some of these things can really help to know, let the child know that yeah, someone is there, someone is there to
Right.
contain me, and I have different sources and ways to actually contain myself. So
Right.
these
Right.
things can really help a lot, especially considering the current scenario.
Right. I think in addition to this, I feel that the parents should also make sure that they express their emotions, how they might be feeling anxious given the situation, so that children understand that it's not just them going through this emotion, and it's
Yeah,
okay to express that it's a safe
yeah.
space, because at the end of the day, all the parents are role models for children. They would be able to create a safe space automatically if they are also modeling for the children that they are expressing their emotions. Then it's like the child responds better.
Yes, I think you made a very valid point, because it's very important for the parents to also show their vulnerability while
Right.
finding sources of containment, but being vulnerable. Because if we are just always like, no, I don't want to be vulnerable, I don't want to do this, the child sees that.
Right.
The child is very smart, and the child can see that this is. They just start forming opinions. This is right and this is wrong.
Right.
So it's very important to contain all of those things while finding very safe sources, like expressing to the child, okay, so this is what we're feeling, and is there anything we would like to do with it? Is there anything we
Right.
would like to change about it? If yes or no, and then move ahead in that direction. Even in terms of just the household materials, I think there are a lot of them. Like, for example, maybe if you have plants, taking care of plants, if you have pets, just playing with the pets.
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
currently, one of the
Right.
most important things that, in terms of therapeutic tool, is just playing with the pets. And apart from that, say for example, you also mentioned anxiety. So I told you clay, but a lot of people don't have access to clay right now. But mostly सबके घर पे आटा होता है. So just
Right.
using atta as a tool of clay and just, molding it in ways, what are you feeling right now? It helps a
Mhm.
lot in that sense. So yeah, some of these things.
Right, right. So, Deepika, you shared a lot of strategies with us that we can use as adults to facilitate and help them deal with the emotions that they are feeling. What is it that parents could do additionally to be able to facilitate emotional development in children, especially children with special needs?
Okay, so I think in terms of that, like initially also we spoke, identifying the emotions is one of the most important things. And what
Okay.
are the ways in which we can identify emotions in the current scenario? Say, for example, you just Google images
Okay.
of different emotions, like some of the most basic emotions like joy, happiness, sadness, anger, fear, scared. All of
Mhm.
these emotions, just Google the images, maybe say three of each emotion, and
Right, right,
just show it to the child and keep on shifting and ask them to name the emotion. Initially, maybe in the first round, you'll help the child in understanding what emotion is this called. Maybe the child will get
Mhm.
confused between two emotions. So, doing it for a
Right,
couple of times, by the time the child understands, okay, I can identify this emotion and I can name this emotion. And
right,
then
right.
also, then in the next step, helping the child to understand that one emotion can be a mixture of two emotions, because that becomes
Mhm.
even more complex to understand. Like, for
Right, right.
example, anger might be mixed with sadness and disgust. There is a
Right,
possibility. So
right,
understanding then in the next step, okay, what are the possible things? So how can this be done? So say for
Mhm.
example, like one of the things that I with my co-facilitator had done was, we showed them the images and then we asked them to form stories around it. What
Okay.
happens with stories is a very important tool in just
Mhm.
projecting or relating to those emotions. So for example, we showed them an image, the person was just looking happy, the person was smiling, the child named
Right,
it as the person was looking happy, and then we just asked the child to form a story around it. So then
okay.
a lot of times what happens with forming stories is the person is actually projecting their own situations or their own feelings
Right,
around it, or their
right.
desires, anything. So just forming a story around it can help to
Mhm.
understand where the child is at as well. And if they are
Mhm.
able to understand the situations in which this emotion is felt, which is also very important. Because if we see in the social cultural context, which emotions we feel is quite labeled in that manner, and
Mhm.
we tend to see what is appropriate and inappropriate. So maintaining
Right, right.
individuality, but at the same time understanding if the child is able to understand and identify the emotions and in which situations this emotion actually takes place. So, say for example, like one of the scenarios that I had again mentioned was, the picture was on happy, and the child just made a story on how the person is listening to music, the person is in park, the
Mhm.
person was running, and the person came from here and there, and where the person is going.
Right.
So, creating a complete storyline using that can be very helpful in terms of understanding emotions.
I completely agree. Stories are a very powerful tool when we use with children. We can use them in so many different ways. Like you mentioned, they could create a story around it, and that would give us an idea of what the child is feeling. Other ways could be that, very often in our school curriculum, when children read stories, we ask them about a particular character. What do you think this character is feeling? Why do you think they are feeling it? So that they can also relate to their own life with it. And then we also use a lot of social stories to introduce a particular concept to children, or maybe to make them understand a particular situation in society. So stories are definitely a very very strong tool of making children understand so many different concepts, including emotions, of course.
Yes,
Right, right,
definitely. Just finding, or maybe just taking a part of the story. Say, for example,
right.
what are some of the most common stories? The Hare and the Tortoise, the Cinderella story. All of these stories, just taking maybe the first part of the story and asking the child to just create a middle part or just create the ending. It's on the child.
Yeah,
Whatever
yeah.
they wish to do, what would they like the ending
Right,
to be
right.
like? So this just fosters the entire play, creativity, imagination, and then they can eventually find their own strengths out of it. And this
Yeah.
can help them to then regulate on their own.
I think I really like the idea that you said that we can use images from Google to show different kinds of emotions, what it looks like. So we can also use it for characters. Like even if you don't read the story, just look at the picture of a particular character in a storybook, and then from that, like a child is creating a story around it. They could also just talk about looking at the character, what do they think the character is feeling. So I think in a
Yes.
way that too is about creating a story related to emotions.
Yes, exactly. Or again, like we initially discussed in terms of just maybe looking at that character and find different clothes, find cushions, maybe just dress up like that character and act it out. Just act that character out. And how does it feel for the child? How would the child like to act it out?
Right.
Maybe using different props, costumes, so pattas or bartan or any of these things to just act the entire character out.
And I think that different children choose different characters to associate with or to enact because of what resonates with them, with that character's personality from that particular story. So that also gives us an insight as adults that what is it that might be going on in the child's mind.
Yes, 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 definitely. And also, I think this creates a way in which the child does not feel threatened or like, we are not
Right.
demanding the child to, tell us what you're feeling, tell us what you are thinking. Because the moment, even as neurotypical individuals, if we force someone to just say what you're thinking, it just gets like, I don't know. I mean, I cannot put it in words or I don't want to just say anything.
Right.
So finding these creative art forms and just like, yeah, this is fun, this is play, and not making therapy as a very serious business sort of a thing,
Right.
like it's not serious. We can make it also fun. We can also make it really cheerful while addressing the goals at hand. So yeah.
So, Deepika, you've shared a lot of things that we can do easily at home to be able to address few of the emotions that the child might be feeling. Is it possible to, use these therapeutic art activities in the daily activities of children?
Yes.
Would that have a positive impact?
Yes, I think in my personal experience, I would really say that having a ritual, so having something which the child is doing every day, can really bring a source of maybe grounding. It can really bring maybe a source of containment of or just
Okay.
emotional regulation to go back to something. So, what are some of the things which can be done daily are, say, just taking out 10 minutes to maybe just journal the thoughts. And
Mm-hmm.
journaling always doesn't have to be writing it down. It can also be just maybe having one color for that day. What is that?
Right.
What are you feeling today? Just choose one color. What color resembles your entire mood? And just painting it on that journal and just maintaining a daily journal basically. Or, like I said initially, maybe creating mandala. So maybe you just draw a circle, a triangle, or any just one object and you fill things inside it. Or maybe just lying down on the ground. I think that's also one of the very important things in terms of emotional regulation because the ground tends to take your energy and just give you that warmth. So just
Right.
lying down on the ground every day can also be a very different sense of emotional regulation, I would say. And say, for example, just listening to music and moving. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people, especially children, are very open to just dancing around and, playing around. So I think just listening to music and just moving around can also help a lot in that sense. Or just jumping around, things like this, but just taking one thing which can be done every day, also not restricting it like, acha, ye cheez choose kar liya, so now forever you have to do this. Making it
Right.
flexible, like for example, okay, I feel like journaling today, tomorrow I feel like moving, and whatever the body needs at that day, but also making it in a sort of ritual. So
Right.
rituals can, I think, play a very important role in terms of that.
Okay. Great. So, Deepika, you've been mentioning a lot about emotional regulation. Could you please break it down for us to understand it better?
Yes. So in terms of emotional regulation, what I mean is, say for example, if the child is feeling very angry, not letting the anger to suppress by punishing or shouting at the child, But okay, so anger is coming out. What are the ways we can address this anger? Is it through verbal communication? Is it that the child needs to process first before talking about it? So maybe again using art forms, using scribbling, throwing water, playing with the atta ka, if agar ghar pe clay nahi hai, so playing with the dough or anything as such. And then maybe processing it further in terms of communication or letting the child to calm down. So that
Okay.
basically, if this is the regulatory phase, so if the child is feeling up or down about around it, so how can we again bring it back to normalcy for the child? So just finding different ways on how can the child regulate on themselves. And also, I think the regulatory phase is different for each one of us. So, for
Right, right.
example, my normal might be very hyper for someone else, but I think it's my normal. So, just
Okay.
understanding that as well. And how can one coexist? Because ultimately, I think all of us are coexisting. So, while accepting and how to coexist, both of these things going hand in hand, and how can we address these things while using the art forms in hand?
Right, right. And I think it's very important for each one of us to be able to develop emotional regulation, to be able to function effectively, so that we don't go off the handle with every situation. We need to be
Yeah.
able to contain ourselves in an effective manner. Like you mentioned, that the idea is not to suppress how we feeling, but to
Hmm.
deal with it in an effective manner, so that the emotion is also released, and the situation doesn't get out of hand.
Yes, yes, definitely agree to that. Just making it in a way that is functional for the individual.
Right,
That's
right.
all. Yeah.
And I think very another very important point that you mentioned about using these activities in the daily routine is that we need to keep changing the activities that we use, because children tend to get very bored very quickly,
Yes.
and they don't want to do the same thing every day, not even 2 days in a row. So
Hmm.
we have
Hmm.
to be quite creative as adults, keep looking out for different things. And in your conversation itself, you've mentioned so many different mediums that we can use with children. So
Hmm.
I think it would suffice for at least a month, if not more,
Yes,
of
and definitely
activities.
to add to that, a lot of times also what happens is if we consider any of the challenges in terms of that involves a lot of hyperactivity. So the child can definitely get distracted very easily. So in that sense, if we tend to change it every day or very frequently, it is just enhancing the entire challenge that the child is already facing. So, in terms
Okay.
of those situations, making sure that maybe just creating one small ritual, then it can be an
Right, right,
activity, it can be anything that the child can do, and maybe right now in the home or anywhere as such. But then maintaining that one activity which the child will do almost every day. So that
right,
one
right,
ritual is maintained and the child knows that, yeah, something can be consistent in that format also. Because if we
right.
are adding different activities constantly, if the situation is wherein the child is constantly inconsistent, so that can perhaps add on to it. So just
Yeah,
making
it can
sure
also,
that depending on the
later on, it can
situation.
create adjustment issues, or maybe leaving tasks unfinished, not
Yeah.
understanding that there is consistency in life situations as well. It affects the stability.
Yeah,
Right, right.
definitely, definitely. And if, like you mentioned about getting bored, maybe using the same task in different manner. Like, for example, if the child is journaling, maybe the child is using different mediums for journaling. Or maybe the child is listening to music that day while journaling. Or maybe the child decided to first move and then whatever feelings came up or like after dancing, whatever happened, that the child wants to journal that. But journaling is consistent then. So
Right,
just
right.
choosing one thing which is going to be consistent, but then you can always be creative around it. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
things like this.
And I think it's for adults, it's really important to also realize that when we're engaging the children in these activities, they're also honing their skills when it comes to fine motor skills, gross motor skills, because all of these activities that Deepika mentioned, we're actually using our hands for them. Or
Hmm.
in some, we are using our entire body. So it actually enhances children's motor skills. So, children might not realize it, but as adults, we can actually choose the activity depending on which skill we might want to improve in children. So, the benefit can be twofold.
Yes, like for what you mentioned, even music can play a very important role. Like
Right.
perhaps in terms of fine motor, gross motor, you can use instruments just to maybe strum the strings, or just use the drums to increase the hand movements or the spatial awareness, all of these things. And maybe also in terms of emotional expression, the child can make music. So, say if the child is capable of forming words and sentences, so just using different words or just the rhyming words and creating a song out of it and just singing it at different pitches. So that also helps in voicing
Right,
things
right.
out. So just using some of these tools in expression and in just understanding how to use this as a way of expressing.
True, true. So, Deepika, thank you so much for sharing so many wonderful activities with us to support our children at home. I'm sure it must have helped everyone in the audience. And in case you've gone through the comments, people have really appreciated how simply you've explained and how you've shared so many of your ideas. So, thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Deepika.
Thank you so much. It was totally my pleasure, and I really hope I could give my 2 cents away. But yes,
Definitely, I
thank
think
you
you
so
need
much.
more.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was lovely actually having a talk about this.
Thank you, Deepika. The pleasure was all mine.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye. Take care.